So, you've just been born in Sparta. Congratulations! Your first official state activity is an audit. Before your parents even get to name you, you're presented to the Gerousia, a council of elders who basically function as the world's harshest quality control department. These men, all over 60, would examine you for any physical defects or signs of weakness at a place called the apothetae, which translates charmingly to the deposits. If you didn't meet their specifications, if you were too small, sickly, or just didn't look the party, you were left there to die of exposure. A truly efficient system for ensuring only the strongest survive. Assuming your definition of strongest is approved by a committee of grumpy grandpas. It's a bold parenting strategy, starting with the immediate threat of abandonment. If you passed the inspection, you got a 7-year free trial of what might resemble a normal childhood. You stayed at home with your mother, but this wasn't exactly a period of gentle nurturing. Spartan women were tasked with the preliminary stages of toughening you up. There was no coddling. Nurses were instructed to raise children without swaddling clothes to strengthen their limbs and to get them used to being alone in the dark. They were taught not to be picky eaters or afraid of anything, really. This was less a childhood and more of a boot camp orientation. Your mom was essentially a drill sergeant laying the groundwork for the state to take over, which it always did. The goal was to make sure you weren't a disappointment when you were handed over. At the age of 7, you were formally enrolled in the Agoge. This wasn't school, it was the complete sublimation of your identity into the state. You were taken from your family and organized into a pack, an agalai, which literally means herd of animals. Subtle. From this point on, the state was your parent, and your peers were your only family. You were given one tunic to wear, summer or winter. Shoes were considered a luxury that made feet soft, so you went barefoot everywhere to toughen them up. You slept on a bed of reeds you had to collect yourself from the Eurotas River without a knife. It was an entire system designed to erase comfort from your vocabulary. Now, let's talk about the food. The rations were intentionally insufficient. You were kept hungry, always. The signature dish was melas zomos, or black broth. Its ingredients were pork, salt, vinegar, and a generous amount of pig's blood. A visitor from Sybaris once said he understood why Spartans didn't fear death after tasting their broth. The hunger had a purpose. It was supposed to encourage you to steal food. This wasn't seen as a crime. It was a critical life skill. Getting caught, however, was the real offense. If you were found out, you were flogged unmercifully, not for stealing, but for your incompetence. The state was essentially running a citywide training program in covert operations, starting with pantry raids. Academic pursuits were, to put it mildly, not a priority. Spartans learned to read and write, but only enough for basic military dispatches. Anything more was considered frivolous. The real focus of their verbal education was brevity and wit, what we call laconic speech, named after their region, Laconia. They were trained to deliver sharp, cutting remarks with maximum impact and minimum words. When Philip of Macedon threatened them, saying, "If I enter Laconia, I will raise Sparta," the Spartan ephors replied with a single word, "if." They were essentially training an entire society in the art of the mic drop. Who needs literature when your insults are legendary? Social dynamics in the Agoge were managed by older boys, the Irenes, who were around 20. They had the authority to command the younger boys and, more importantly, to punish them. This wasn't random hazing, it was institutionalized. Fights were encouraged to identify the toughest and bravest among the pack. The Irene would deliberately instigate quarrels and watch the outcomes. After dinner, he might quiz the boys, asking things like, "Who is the best man in the city?" A slow or poorly reasoned answer would earn you a bite on the thumb. It was a system of constant surveillance and judgment designed to forge obedience and a brutal sense of hierarchy. Your teenage supervisor had a state-issued license to be a complete menace. For the most promising graduates of the Agoge, there was an advanced placement program, the Crypteia. This was effectively Sparta's secret police. Members would be sent out into the countryside with nothing but a dagger, instructed to hide during the day and, at night, to kill any helots they found. Helots were the state-owned serfs, the massive population that Sparta had enslaved and lived in constant fear of. The Crypteia was both a terror tactic to keep the helots in line and the final, brutal test for a young Spartan. It was a declaration that you were now capable of killing for the state, silently and without question. It's one thing to train soldiers, it's another thing entirely to make murdering the unarmed a graduation requirement. After surviving all of this, at age 20 you became a full-fledged soldier. At 30 you could finally become a full citizen, provided you were elected into a sicitiation, a common mess hall. Failure to get elected meant social ruin. This system produced the most feared soldiers in Greece, no question, for a time. The problem is, when your entire society is a hyper-specialized military machine, you're not very good at anything else. Diplomacy, economics, art, all neglected. And their battlefield dominance wasn't forever. At the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE, the Thebans, using innovative tactics, shattered the Spartan army. Turns out, being the toughest kid on the block doesn't help when someone else changes the rules of the fight. The myth of Spartan invincibility had an expiration date. Here's the beautiful, tragic irony of the whole Spartan experiment. This brutal, all-consuming system designed to preserve Sparta at all costs is exactly what destroyed it. The Agoge was so harsh, the lifestyle so demanding, and the infant culling so common that Spartan population numbers entered a terminal decline. They were so obsessed with creating the perfect Spartan that they forgot to create enough Spartans to sustain a city. Aristotle noted their problem of oliganthropia, a shortage of men. By the time of the Battle of Leuctra, they could barely field a respectable army. They had perfected the individual warrior at the expense of the collective society. They built the world's most effective warrior production line, only to discover it had driven them into extinction. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds.